In this video, I want to show you guys how to find the next perfect square in Codewars. And what it wants us to do is to complete the find next square method, as you can see right here. They want us to find the next integral perfect square after the one passes a parameter. And our parameter is SQ. Recall that an integral perfect square is an integer n such that square root of n is also an integer. If the argument is itself not a perfect square, then return -1. So in this example, SQ, or our parameter, is 121. What we would return at the end is 144, due to the fact that this is indeed a perfect square, and the next perfect square is 144. The way we find that is the square root of 121 is 11. If we add 1 and then take the square of that, that would be 12 times 12, which is 144. We return -1 here because if we find the square root of 114, we get a double, or a floating point integer, which we know that from the definition here, a floating point integer, once we take the square root, is there's no next perfect square, so we just return -1. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the square root of SQ, and we're going to assign it to a variable called root. So we're just going to say long int root, and we're going to set that equal to the square root of SQ. Now this square root function is inside the CMath library, so don't forget you have to include CMath. Next, what we need to do is we need to ascertain that this is in fact a perfect square. And the way we can do this is we can just say if root times root does not equal square, and I'll explain to you how this works in a minute. We know that it's not a perfect square, and we will return -1. The reason this works is, say for example, the parameter SQ that they give passed to us is 10. Now if we took the square root of 10, that would give us a floating point decimal, which would be 3 point something. 3 point something, when we give this root of type long int, there will be an implicit floor conversion from 3 point something to just 3. So root would be 3 and SQ would be 10. If we said 3 times 3, that would give us 9, and that does not equal 10. So what that means is that would not be a perfect square, and we know by this definition right here that we need to return -1. So now that we have the square root, we have ascertained that it is a perfect square. We can find the next perfect square. So what we can do is we can return root plus 1, root plus 1 times root plus 1. And that should give us the next perfect square. So let us test it and see how we have done. Alrighty, so let's attempt it. Alrighty, so all 2 test cases passed. That was how you solved the find the next perfect square in Codewars. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate if you liked, commented, and subscribed, and I will see you guys in future tutorials.